Hi, my name is Dan Boucher and I'm the Welsh Conservative Candidate for the Assembly elections here in Swansea East. In the next 5 minutes or so I'd like to share with you some of the things we'd like to do if we get elected and how they will benefit us here in this constituency. Back in 2002, WAC identified that Welsh GDP per head was just 80% of the UK average. In other words, we in Wales were 20% poorer than the UK as a whole. They responded to by committing themselves to closing this gap. Today, far from closing the gap, even by just 1%, the situation has actually deteriorated. Welsh GVA per head is now under 75% of the UK average. And in this context, the Welsh Assembly Government has rather abandoned the GDP-GVA measure in favour of another, gross domestic household income, which moderates our underperformance. It's not great for us in Swansea though, which has a gross domestic household income of just £12,830 compared to a Wales average of £13,073 and a UK average of £14,889. The truth is that you can talk forever about your passion for good public services, but if you cannot deliver an economic development strategy for Wales that works, tax revenue will be limited and your options for improving public services will also be limited. In Swansea, the economic development challenges we face are very real. Our employment rate is just 64%. It is below the Wales average of 66%, which is in turn below the UK average of 70%. The self-employment figures for Swansea are also weak at 11%, whilst the comparable figure for Wales is 13%. Our low levels of employment are actually one of the chief drivers for our poor economic performance relative to the rest of the UK. The Welsh Conservatives have a number of important policy commitments to address these crucial challenges. First, if elected, we will abolish the business rate for small businesses with a rateable value below £12,000. With the business rate removed, it will be easier for people to start and sustain small businesses, employing more people and generating more wealth locally. This will obviously be great for those gaining that new employment and for those running businesses, but it will also be great for the community as a whole, because as the businesses grow, tax receipts will rise and government will then have more money to invest in our public services in health and in education. I only have to look at all the for sale signs in the shops and offices in Morriston, where I live, to see the tremendously positive impact that abolishing the business rate for small businesses could have. It is a great policy for Wales, but it is an even better policy for Swansea, given that our employment figures are relatively weak. Second, we will introduce enterprise zones in areas of Wales that are in difficulty. An enterprise zone is a geographical area that is struggling economically, where government intervenes to help by lowering corporation tax and providing other benefits to encourage companies to enter and invest and generate more jobs for local people. No decision has been made yet about where the enterprise zones in Wales will be located. I will certainly push for the allocation of such a zone here in Swansea East. Third, we will introduce a serious manufacturing strategy for Wales. One of the great ironies for Swansea, Copperopolis, once one of the great manufacturing capitals of the world, is that not only have we lost our manufacturing jobs in large part, but that today the proportion of people employed in manufacturing at 9.5% is actually below the UK and Wales average of 10.6%. The Welsh Conservatives passionately believe that manufacturing must play a more important role in Swansea and in Wales, so that we have a more balanced economy. Obviously, we cannot turn back the clock. All manufacturing tasks can be carried out much more cheaply in other countries with lower costs. In the current environment, however, there is a lot going on at the really high-tech end of engineering, where the need for very high levels of skills means that jobs cannot be relocated to other countries that don't have the skills in question. Mindful of this opportunity, we have repeatedly pushed over a number of years the Welsh Assembly Government to produce a manufacturing strategy for Wales, but they have refused. In light of this inaction, one of our key manifesto commitments is that, if elected, we will bring forward a serious manufacturing strategy for the 21st century Wales that will seek to rise to this key challenge. In addressing the relatively low employment levels in Wales, one of the key problems we must confront is our weak educational performance. In Swansea, the proportion of people of working age with no qualifications is 16.1%, compared with a comparative figure for Wales of 14.8% and the UK of 12.6%. We won't be able to rise to the manufacturing strategy for Wales challenge without high skills, which will depend on excellence in education. Today, Welsh educational outcomes are the poorest in the UK. And the latest PISA study, comparing the educational outcomes of European countries, demonstrates that we have fallen into the lower half of the international league tables and are now behind countries like Estonia and Lithuania on maths and science. In this context, it is not surprising to learn that the differential educational spend per child rose from about £60 in 1999, when the Labour Welsh Assembly government was first elected, to a staggering £600 today. The Welsh Conservatives are committed to addressing this shortfall by sending monies straight to schools, thus cutting down on the amount of budget that is used up by educational bureaucracy outside the school, especially at the local authority level. At the moment, our room for manoeuvre in all areas is limited because of the current debt crisis resulting from a mixture of a global banking crisis and Labour mismanagement. Every day we are spending a staggering £120 million on interest payments on our debt. This is money down the drain. If we want to avoid becoming like Greece, Ireland or Portugal, we must make savings. In this context, however, it is vital to be aware of two things. First, the UK government has treated Wales very generously, cutting its budget by less than the comparable English budget. Second, we strongly believe that people in hospital should not have to pay the price for the irresponsible spending decisions of others. And consequently, if elected, we will not cut the health budget. Rather, we commit to increasing the health budget in line with inflation over the next 4 years, so that in real terms, the health budget stays where it is, and consequently, there are no cuts. Implementing this policy will actually involve reversing the health cuts that Labour implied have already put in motion in this financial year. This will be good news for the NHS in Swansea. I hope that with our economic development strategy in place, it will not be too long before we consider actually increasing investment in public services and the voluntary sector in real terms once again. I believe that one of the greatest tragedies in life is when people's gifts and talents are not recognised and when they live their lives without reaching their full potential. I've got involved in politics because I want to see policies in place that will help everyone develop their gifts and talents and truly reach their potential. I believe that the Welsh Conservative policies rise to this challenge far more effectively than those of any other party. The truth is that there is no better way of helping people governmentally than by increasing their chances of getting a fulfilling and sustainable job. Moreover, if companies are growing and more people are in work, tax revenues will increase and the government will then be able to invest more on public services, the voluntary sector and key initiatives like Communities First. The policies I have talked about today, along with all the other policy commitments we've made in our manifesto, present a realistic, practical, prudent and costed strategy for addressing the fundamental problems that Wales faces at the moment. I do hope that they will get your vote and approval on May the 5th. Thank you so much for listening. Diolch yn fawr iawn.